Hey guys, it's Mike with my final GodForge video for the Alpha Wave 2 testing. I am so looking forward to Wave 3. Unfortunately, I am leaving this. I'm actually recording this on Thursday in the middle of the afternoon. I think there's 2 more days of the alpha test, but unfortunately I'm heading to the lake and I'm not bringing my computer, so it is over for me. That being said, I'm really kind of sad. I'd really like to get 2 more days in here because I have a pretty good situation going on. So first, let's start and talk about the heroes I've accumulated. Then we'll talk about the progress I've made, go through all the stars and everything else, and then also talk about some final thoughts as far as what I think. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we jump over into the heroes. I'm pretty confident that I did acquire all the heroes in the summoning pool. I could be wrong on that, but that includes, what do we got here? We got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 17 legendaries. We also got 15 epics going on there, and I got most of them actually to level 5 awakening. And they kind of trickled through here just because of where people got leveled up. I was going back and earning stars, so some folks got some levels on them. But got those all level 5 awakened. I think these 3, Leonidas, and these 2 were the only 3 that did not get to 5-star or level 5 awakening. And then we had 16 rares. And on the rares, I'm pretty sure I got all 16 rares to level 5 awakening as far as that goes. We also had 8 uncommons and 9 commons in the game that I ran through and got. Now I didn't farm a lot back there to get some of those guys, so I could go back and get those guys awakened and so forth. But that's what we got as far as that. I spent most of my time farming in areas where I could get characters, just because that's one of my favorite parts of the game, is collecting the characters. When it comes to the gear, we did get quite a few gear pieces that are pretty strong. If we go to level, I think, yeah, so we got, or probably rank, I think is what I'm looking for. Yeah, so we got a couple pieces of the level 5 gear across the board here, as well as a lot of level 4 gear, and mostly level 3 is where I ended up. Lots of different gear sets in here. I didn't count them all out, but there seems to be a plethora of gear sets in the game. I think this is kind of a little bit of a danger zone, because I do think this is one of the areas where raids started to fall apart, is when they just added 37,000 gear sets, and it's like, okay, you know, what do I need for what? And it became too much. That being said, I don't think we're there yet as far as too much, but there's just a lot of stuff going on here with those gear sets. But I do really like how they did some of these gear sets, where if you get 2 of them, it unlocks 1 ability, and then when you get to 4 of them, you get an additional, I'm assuming it's an additional ability. So you get both the ultimate ability damage 15%, and then also the divinity 10% after ultimate ability is used, are 2 kind of different abilities. So I do like how they kind of built that in there. This was another one where they healed 15% and then grants a 25% chance to counter strike. So those kind of things I think are really cool as far as the gear sets are concerned. But I did get quite a bit of gear on the account, and that came from farming the multiples of 10, just because you got the random drop rates from all the bosses. We got quite a few of level 5 awakenings on our legendary characters as well as a couple 4s, and then kind of trickling through. I think everybody ended up with at least 1 copy on them. So that was kind of fun as far as that goes. I wish I would have had more time to come back and use some of these characters and kind of get a feel for, as their awakening levels increase, like what they brought to the table. Isis proved to be pretty beastly when you got her up to a high awakening level. It's just, I ran into one that I think I had 2 or 3 of my people were not doing enough damage to kill her. She'd put her shield up, and by the time I could get through her shield, she's putting her shield back up. And it was kind of eye-opening as far as how tanky she can be with the right build. So that was pretty cool. My favorite character out of all of them has got to be Zeus. I think he absolutely destroyed. He has an A1 that I think he gets charged turn meter off of. and so he would go multiple times in a row. If he killed an enemy, I think it charges a turn meter as well. So he's just blazing through ultimate abilities and just kind of rolling through. It was really a fun character to get on the account when I did finally get him. The other ones I really liked the Dragon. YDG was a fantastic champion. The Sphinx was a fantastic champion. Hercules, fantastic. And I think on the support side of things, Shamash here has got to be top tier. He does so much in his kit with the revive and everything else. Oh, dog's going crazy. Mom must be home. So he just does so much to press the account along. And when I did get him to Awaken level 3 specifically, he kind of opened up quite a bit for him. As we go through the dungeon, we were able to beat stage 150, and we got a total of 267 hearts as I went through and counted them out. That being said, over on the leaderboard, I have not found my name in here. So technically right here is where I should be based on, I literally counted my stars. So I had 267 stars for finishing, but if we type in my name here, it's for some reason only giving me credit for, I think, 170. Yeah, so I don't know how frequently this updates. This has been probably at least 12 hours since I've had the 267. I didn't get a chance to play this morning really, but I was planning on going through and getting as close to 300 stars as I could, but I just ran out of time, unfortunately. But I do feel like I should be on this leaderboard. I'm at 224th on here. I'm in the top 400 on the final boss. This was a little bit sad. I got 6.5 million. I only ever played it the one time. I did not get a chance to start to kind of build a team and see about doing better. I was trying to do a little bit of homework and try to figure out what kind of team I could put together. And I honestly didn't even put all my best gear on the team I was using. So I think there was some hope there. Now that to get on the leaderboard itself, I think I had to get to 82 or 83 million. I'm pretty far away. So I probably wouldn't have made that, but the challenge one I should definitely be on because it's not giving me credit for all my stars. So outside of that, in the wave 3, I really do hope to make it to one of these leaderboards and get my name in lights, because that would be pretty fun. So I'd like to talk about the alpha experience. I think that overall, the way that they got this laid out with the cavern and kind of going through all the dungeons, I think was really fun. It was really engaging. I think they put some good thought into drops and things along the way and the different levels so you could farm specifically what you needed, which I thought was pretty good. I do think that level 120 was a pretty big step up, but that being said, you don't need to have super high stats or super high leveled characters as much as you need a good strategy. So I do think that for me personally, I kind of was going with, if I get 5-6 star people, I'll just be able to blaze through it. And even that was not good enough. You had to have the strategy. You had to use your damage over times, reflect damage, mirror damage, whatever you could to kind of get extra damage on the boss, which I think was pretty cool. I didn't try it, which I would have liked to, but there's a couple champions that actually do initiative down or initiative speed down that could potentially give you more time on that boss. But I think that was one of the things they were doing in the first wave on the alpha, and I think they might have nerfed it. So I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that could be a great strategy as well if you happen to have a character that does initiative down. That way it prevents that gold guard from getting all the way to his ability and killing you in one hit. But honestly, he was the hardest part of the entire thing. So I don't know if it was just because of the strategy that I wasn't putting together or because of how difficult he really was. But I mean, coming all the way through, like once I beat him, I pretty much blazed all the way through to stage 51. So I do think there might be a little bit of a power and kind of step right there that might need to be kind of thought out a little more. But that being said, ultimately everything got progressively more difficult. It made you press your account along. There was a couple stages in these last 10 where you kind of had to play with your team a little more and be like, okay, well, I need more durability, or I need more damage, or whatever the case was. I need more speed, which I think was very helpful as well. So all those things kind of came together, and I think the actual progression all the way to stage 151 felt pretty good with the exception of 120. I think the drop rates and the way that they give you things along the way are pretty solid. I do think we could probably use maybe a little higher drop rates on some of the things. So if we take a look at my champions, there were a lot of champions that did not get their abilities dialed in. I just kind of started going through them, trying to think if I got to Anubis or not. Yeah, so like Anubis, didn't get any abilities done there. I think I got through probably 5 legendary champions with books. That being said, I have 2 days and I think I have 3,000 plus energy, so I could be farming books for the next 2 days and get those extra books on champions. But I think a little bit more generous drop rates on the books could be beneficial. I think a little more generous drop rates on the materials for Ascension could be beneficial. Specifically, these were really hard to get. And so getting 6-star awakened characters seemed to be a pretty big filtering point. It kind of was one of the hardest things to get on the account. As you can see, well, and these guys, I've actually used these, but if we go to a different champion, probably on Anubis here, we could see I actually stacked up, 3,000 of these middle guys and only 187 of the big ones. I say only 187, that's actually quite a bit. But if I go through and I actually start leveling up my my characters here to get that 6-star Ascension, I must have got that farming last night and I didn't get a chance to get to it. My little dog got sick, I had to take her into the vet. So far, she seems to be doing okay, but she is 15 years old. So, you know, she's on borrowed time, but we love her and we're getting as much time out of her as we can. She seems to be comfortable now, and we're trying to get her eating. But yeah, that was my whole morning, was taking my little dog to the vet. I thought I was going to have to put her down, but I did not, so that's pretty good. Not doing this with any strategy whatsoever. I probably have better champions, but as we kind of move through these guys here, let's see here, Loki would be the next one, and if we tried to get him upgraded, I think we would, we're not going to quite get him upgraded, or actually 25, we'll get him, we got him. But you can see the way the drop rates worked out, I barely had enough to get these characters done with 12 of these left, but I got 3,000 of these middle guys. And when I started farming these, all of my farming was on the big drop rates. I didn't do any farming here prior, at least that I'm aware of. Although I don't think you get the small ones on the big ones. So maybe I did do a little bit of farming ahead of time. But I think the drop rates here could probably use a little bit of a tweaking for the Alpha Wave 3. And then going into Gold, I did all the farming on, going into Void, Eternal. I'm going to get it. Going into the Eternal, I did all the farming there the same with I did both Strength, Cunning, and Wisdom, because you get the Voids alongside those. And I did not get enough to get a lot of the Eternal legendaries dialed in. So I've got Aphrodite here, I've got Horus here, I've got Odin. So there's a lot, and Pangu. So there was just a lot where it was just stretched pretty thin as far as those go. So I feel like those drop rates could be a little bit tweaked, just so that we could kind of be, if we're gonna spend the time farming, we can kind of be a little more leisure about how many updates we do on how many champions. So that would be kind of fun for the Alpha Wave 3. But that being said, like as far as Alpha Wave 3, like at the end of the day, it's a fun experiment, it's a fun thing, but ultimately we just want the game to be good, and all of those updates honestly are irrelevant because they're not going to translate to the game. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on it, but if the Alpha 3 was a little smoother, those would be the suggestions that I would have. As far as the game itself, I gotta say, like, my favorite thing in the game is the imprint of weapons and just the introduction of weapons in general. I think that this guy here is a really cool way. What am I doing? A really cool way to change the way a weapon works in a major way. That being said, I think it's going to be pretty hard. Like theoretically, you're going to have choices to make where you're like, do I awaken my champion or do I use this imprint? So like for example, Hercules, I have level 5 awakened. But I got 2 extra copies. Same thing for Isis as well as Ra. But you can start to see some of these imprints can be really strong as far as what they'll do for your champions. So it does give you kind of an endless duplicate system where, because every time you put that imprint on one weapon, you can move it to another weapon, or you can't move. I don't think you can pull an imprint off a weapon. But if you got another one, there might be another weapon you'd want that same imprint on. So theoretically, no matter how many copies of Hercules I get, I'm going to have uses for them. That being said, I don't know that I would use the imprint until they were, you know, awakened to level 5, because the awakenings are pretty strong. So assuming you're going to get 6 copies of any legendary character is kind of bold. But you want to think long term. You want to think, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, as far as, you know, putting that pool together. And I think that that is a better alternative to say, like, what King Arthur Legends Rise, love the game, having a great time with it. But they require 11 copies of a legendary character, but there's only like 20, there might be 30 in the game now. And their drop rates are super generous. So you literally get every character in the game, and then it's just a matter of stacking up chivalries. So I think that there's going to be significantly more champions in the game for GodForge. So it'll be a lot harder to accumulate all of them if you ever even can. So I do think that this system seems like it has longevity. But if it needs adjustments or tweaking, I'm sure they're willing to and able to adjust that if need be. One thing I would say, if we're looking at a champion pool more similar to Raid, not now, but when they launched, I think Raid's got over 1,000 champions now. It's kind of crazy. But they've been adding them for the last 6 years, so that champion pool has grown. But if we're kind of in more of that space, one thing I think would be a huge win for the game would be if there was some sort of currency that you could accumulate where maybe, you know, every quarter to every 4 months, you would earn enough to summon any legendary character you wanted. So theoretically, within like a year's time, if you're playing for a year straight, maybe you could get between, you know, 2 and 4 specific legendary characters. So if you wanted to get Hercules and the RNG is just not working for you, that would be a really cool way to, at least you're making progress in like that, in dungeons or in events or whatever. There's some sort of currency that allows you to do that. Maybe a different currency that also allows you to do the same thing with the Eternals or Voids. And that would be like maybe 1 to 2, or like, yeah, 1 to 2 a year instead of as frequently as these. But if you imagine playing this game for 4 years and there's just that void that you really, really want, like, there's just no hope in a game like Raid. Like, if you want Krisk on your account, it's dumb luck that you'll ever get Krisk on your account. Or a Chrysia, or any number of Void legendary characters. So I think in some sort of implementation of that with a huge champion pool would be kind of cool. For me, my personal story is when I started playing Raid, I wanted Valkyrie. That was the character that I was excited to get. I wanted Valkyrie super bad. Ended up around year 4, I finally pulled her. And by then, I kind of was burned out on the game. And it's just kind of one of those things, like after 4 years of playing every day and not missing a single fragment event, a single fusion event in 4 years, I was dedicated to playing the game. There was no avenue for me ever to receive Valkyrie. And she wasn't even a Void legendary character. She was just a standard character. There were, you know, heightened levels of things, and I went for one of the 10 times chances for Sifi early on in the game. She was a Void legendary, and I actually hit my pity, and I got a duplicate Arbiter. And I was just, my heart broke right then and there. I mean, I was probably, I don't even know, 1.5 to 2 years into the game at that point. But I'd wanted that Sifi for probably 6 to 8 months, and I was like, oh, this is my chance. And it just, everything fell apart. But things like that are so defeating, where it's like if you gave some sort of incremental gain towards a specific champion, I think that would just add to the player experience, and it would be a balance. I mean, if you had 100 legendaries in the game, which I think their plan is to have more than that at launch. I mean, if it took you 3 to 4 months to get one specific one, and then you need 6 copies of that one to get them fully awakened, and potentially 7 copies if they have a great imprint, making sure you got one every 3 to 4 months, I don't think would break the game. I think it would be something where it's like there might just be that champion that you really want, and now there's at least something you can do to try to get them. So that would be my suggestion for the game itself when it launches. Obviously, in 10 days, it's not really a currency that you need to put into the alpha test, anything like that. But that would just be something I think would be a big win for all the players in the community, free to play as well as low spenders and even high spenders, because you know, you can spend a lot of money and never get the champion that you want. It gets pretty frustrating and it feels very unrewarding. Another thing I really like about the way the game is playing out is this core ability, basic ability layout plus ultimate. I think is really strong. And then you have the passive for the character that opens up at three level ascension, or 3-star ascension. And then you have the passive attached to your weapon. So essentially you get to kind of customize one of your passives. And then the other thing with the speed breakdown between your core ability and basic, that'll kind of dictate how many times you can run your core ability, which is kind of cool because you can basically speed through your cooldown a little faster. But if it's the ultimate ability that's really the reason the person's on your team, you have a completely different speed going on here with initiative. And if you build that champion with initiative, you can be running through that A3, so to speak, without any cooldown a lot faster. And I think that that is a really cool dynamic in the game. I also think that the kits seem to have a really nice flow to them. They're not overly confusing, but they're complicated enough where you're like, okay, this character does these things, and if I bring this one in, that. But you can start to play with the synergies. They also have synergies among characters. I think Isis and Ra and Horus all had synergies going on there. I think Odin and Loki have some synergies, and it's synergies that are kind of fun that make sense. Like Tristan and Isol have some synergies. So I do think that the way the kits are building out really makes a lot of sense, and I think they're pretty fun, and they're like, it feels very smooth. But ultimately, there's not a whole lot of feedback I can provide at this point for the game because we are looking at an unfinished product. I think that the way things are shaping, the bones of everything, the way that it felt to play was really nice. Like, I was very excited every day to get in my account. When I got new legendaries, I was excited to look at their abilities and see how they would measure up with my other champions. I think all in all, like the player experience was really, really good. And I think from there, it's just a matter of introducing bosses with different mechanics that require, you know, different skills, like your AoE abilities versus single target abilities, your damage over time abilities versus anything else, burn abilities versus acid. Like, all those different things kind of come into play as you come up against enemies that require a certain amount or a very specific need. And that's where I think the game is really going to start to flesh out, is when we start seeing some of those dungeons pop up with some of those bosses. But again, judging off what we have here, which I'm going to guess is 5, maybe 10% of the game that we're getting a chance to really get our hands on, everything is really lining up to what I think is going to be a phenomenal player experience. But given more time, I would be definitely going through those dungeons and making sure that I got 3 or 2 stars on all of them. I will say one of my least favorite things about the entire experience was when you come in here on some of these challenges. Let's see here, 10 ultimate abilities, 2 without losing a hero. There were a couple that I feel like I did what they told me to do, but it didn't give me credit for it. So I was going to kind of go back and see what exactly, if I was doing something wrong. But it did feel like there was just something weird going on. But the ones where they requested a specific buff or debuff, to be honest, was frustrating going through the characters and trying to figure out who laid that debuff. I felt like that was like the resistance down, for example. And then I found out, like, on the resistance down, I think it was on stage 26. Yeah, so on stage 26 here, we had the defeat while placing resistance down. So I went in here and I go through, and long story short, I found out that Dagonet. Oh, I gotta get these guys out of here. Get them out of here. I think it's Dagonet. Yeah, Dagonet. So apparently he does a resistance down, and I forget what ability it's on. But when you go in here, it shows your locks here. And on his A2, it shows defense down here. It shows vanish. And then on the ultimate, defense down. So I moved on. I literally went through every single character in the entire game and did this to try to find a resistance down character, which was in and of itself really frustrating. But then what I found out is when I go to heroes here and I come back and I go to Dagonet, and then when I came in here and I looked at my Dagonet, because he was level 5 awakened, all of a sudden that resistance down popped up. And then it was like, oh, that's kind of like, you know, it would just be one of those things where after all that time, like literally it probably took me 5 to 10 minutes to just go through every champion I had looking for resist down to come to find out, I actually had to look it up. Thank you, Ragewood, by the way. Ragewood had put an awesome video together. If you're looking to get 2 stars on stuff, it's too late because this video came out too late. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. But thank you, Ragewood, because I went through and he was the one that actually helped me figure this out. But yeah, it was just kind of one of those things that was extremely frustrating. That being said, I get it's an alpha test and putting in an extra filter and doing the thing. It doesn't necessarily make sense to take the time to do that right now. But because you have that as a, like, to me, even some of these where it's like, hey, use 2 brawlers. It's like, okay, so for me to find out who's a brawler, I have to click on them. I have to go over here and be like, nope, that's an invoker. And then I click off of them. I click on here and I go, he's a brawler. Okay, cool. So we're going to use Hercules. What about Seamus? Seamus, is he? Nope, he's not a brawler. Nope, he's a slayer. Okay, is he a brawler? Nope, he's a defender. What about Dracula? Is he a brawler? Oh, he's a brawler. Okay. So for putting 4 people together that are all a thing, it just was really clunky. It was probably my least favorite experience in the entire alpha. Now, that being said, do you have to 2-star stuff? No, you can just skip it. You can just move on. I'm a completionist and I enjoy doing that. And so that was the part that really hung up for me, where I was like, this just feels not done. But I get that putting an extra filter in there for an alpha test specifically is kind of, it's extra. It's just extra. But if you're going to put these guys in the game, I would make sure you do something to kind of highlight, here's 3 of the most common champions that have this ability. And then you can go in there and be like, oh, well, what level awakening do I need? Or whatever the case is. And then you're like, okay, well, let me see if I can get them going. Also, I wouldn't put anything in here that is not available in an A1, or an A2 of a common champion. Like if you put stuff in here that's required to have Sphinx, maybe somebody doesn't get lucky enough to pull Sphinx, and now you're sitting here like, oh, I can't get this star because Sphinx, I didn't get Sphinx on my account, which I think is kind of a bummer. It just feels like a bummer. But anyway, I digress. I mean, I think ultimately it's just a little extra fun in the game, and it wasn't really a make or break deal, but that was one of the sticking points for me personally. I did find the gear sorting to be a little bit clunky as well, which again, I think is going to be obviously fleshed out by the time the game comes around. I do think having a priority build would be pretty cool, where, like, this is for the game, not for the alpha, where you could say, hey, I want to focus specifically on speed, 100% speed, and you go click and it shows you the best build or 3 of the best builds that you can choose from. And then maybe there's a toggle where use available gear or use all my gear so that I can pull it off other champions if I wanted to build a speed. Or you had, maybe I'm thinking 4, like if you had speed, you had initiative, you had, like, you could choose up to 4 different categories where you could do 50% here, 15% here, 10%, and just kind of do a toggle switch where it could kind of show you 3 different builds between available gear or all your gear. It would be a really awesome way to be able to build champions, because kind of going through here was a lot. It was enough that I didn't do it as frequently as I should have. The other thing too is, as I was putting gear on and taking gear off, a lot of times the gear kind of jumped around. It was kind of hard to figure out where that gear was, and I'm trying to figure out, I can't remember exactly which area it was where I was enhancing my champions, but every time it would back out, it would just jumble them. So then I'd have to come up here and go back to rank to put them in order, or go back to level. I can't find it, so it might have already been fixed. It might have just been a bug that they were working on and they fixed it. But as far as that goes, it was just kind of frustrating, because it was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to find specific heroes, and they're all getting jumbled up and and I'm just going through the filter trying to make heads or tails of what's going on. I did actually later find in one of my videos, I was like, oh, it'd be cool if you could turn this into a spirit. You absolutely can, and that's awesome. So you can grab a champion here, turn them right into a 1-star spirit. Disadvantage here is if you do take a 4-star spirit, you can't take a 4-star spirit and upgrade it to a 5-star spirit. So you do need a champion to upgrade in order to make it a 5-star spirit. But at this point in the game, now that I have, like, this guy here is a 5-star spirit, I can go in here and I can go ahead and, I got it. Well, let's see here if I could turn this around. There we go. And we're going to go into here and find them. But one thing I think was kind of a miss, and I just actually noticed this, I didn't try it. So this is a 5-star chicken right here, ready to go. But if I try to convert it into a spirit, it's a 3-star spirit. So it'd be kind of nice to be able to get 5-star spirits, put them on the account, clean up your account so you don't have a bunch of 5-star characters you don't want, chunking stuff up. But all these guys should be 5-star spirits, not 3-star spirits. This would be a real bonehead move. It is cool. I mean, I am getting the experience back, so I guess it could translate back to a 5-star spirit. But I'd rather just convert that into a 5-star spirit and get extra experience for anything over level 40. So I think that might be a better way to do that as far as that goes. And I think for the game itself, that would be cool because you can keep your champion pool to a minimum where you're not sitting on a bunch of chickens or a bunch of resources that don't really make sense. Like I'm a little anal on stuff like that. So it's like I try to upgrade the same character so I know they're chickens, which is kind of silly, but it's just the way that I like to go. But it's like if I could get to a 5-star chicken and just turn them into a chicken or turn them into a spirit, that way I don't have to worry about whether or not I have the specific champion that I am using for my chickens, which is kind of funny. But that would be kind of a cool thing, I think, as far as later on in the game. But ultimately, I had a fantastic experience. I played this game way too much. I farmed overnight, every night. There's 2 days left, and I'm actually bummed out that I don't get to play, which is kind of funny. I am very sad to give my account back because I just feel like I have a rock star account. Which is pretty exciting, but that's part of the alpha testing, is you get to have cool things on your account and then you have to give them back. But I cannot wait for the Alpha Wave 3 test. I will be participating in it. I will be probably trying really hard to get on one of those leaderboards for realsies. I want to actually pull up the website, see my name. That'd be pretty fun. So I really can't wait for that. But I've had a great time with the experience. I hope you guys have as well. If you haven't signed up, I think you still can sign up for the Alpha Wave 3, which I believe is starting early September. I want to say the 3rd or the 5th or something like that. I could be wrong on that, but look into it because I would say, honestly, it was worthwhile. Even if you only play for a day or two and just kind of get a feel for the game, I think you'd be pretty impressed with where we're at. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me all the way to the end. If you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, please do so. I will be covering GodForge when it comes out. Also covering King Arthur Legends Rise on a daily basis, or mostly daily. Trying to do daily, but it's a lot to get a video out every day. But at least, like, I'd say 5 videos a week. I'm over there doing a thing. So I appreciate the support, and I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.